President Buhari's lockdown order in Lagos but exception might go in the way of Ogun State as the governor says his people are not ready for the lockdown. Tonight, we analyze the palliative measures promised by President Buhari in his speech yesterday as the government is planning the 14-day lockdown set to commence tonight. And we'll also look at some of the legal angles to the orders of the president. And welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Okimale. We'll begin with not so good news about another positive case of coronavirus in the country. Well, Governor Seyi Makinde of Oyo says he has tested positive for coronavirus and is in self-isolation. The governor revealed that in a statement on his verified Twitter handle earlier today, where he disclosed that he's now asymptomatic. Tonight, our attention is going to be on what the federal government says it will do, especially in the light of the lockdown planned on 3 states, two states and the FCT of the nation in the nation's battle to fight the coronavirus war. The Nigerian government, as yesterday confirmed that, earlier today rather, confirmed the second death from coronavirus in the country. The Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Henire, says that he made this known during the Presidential Task Force briefing on COVID-19 in Abuja, the nation's capital today. He said that to date, 3 persons have been discharged. Well, the Lagos government has confirmed that 5 have been discharged after successful treatment. But sadly, another fatality was said to have been recorded over the weekend in the person of a patient who had severe underlying illnesses. The presidency has described President Muhammadu Buhari's statement as the right way to go from his speech yesterday on some of the decision the president says the nation will take in the light of the policies rolled out in the address of the president yesterday. And these are some of the highlights of what the president said yesterday. It says that there will be cessation of movement in Lagos, Ogun, and the FCT for an initial period of 14 days with effect from 11 p.m. on Monday, which is today. All seaports in Lagos will remain operational. Vehicles and drivers conveying essential cargoes from these ports to other parts of the country will be screened thoroughly before departure by the Ports Health Authority. Well, there are some measures taken to alleviate the pains within these 14 days. Relief materials to be deployed to residents of satellite and commuter towns and communities around Lagos and Abuja whose livelihoods will be affected by some of the restrictive measures. School feeding program during this period is to continue without compromising social distancing policies. A 3-month repayment moratorium for all trader money, market money, and farmer money loans to be implemented with immediate effect. And for the most vulnerable in the society, President Buhari directed that the conditional cash transfer to be given for the next 2 months will be paid immediately. And internally displaced persons who will also receive 2 months of food rations in the coming weeks. This is some of the measures that were announced in the speech of the president yesterday. A lot of people are already asking the question, for those who live on a subsistence basis, whose earnings are daily, based on they go out in the morning and they come back with money to feed, what happens to them within these 2 weeks that they're going to be at home? What is the government thinking? Those that are captured in all of these policies, they may have some succor, but those that are captured, that are not captured outside of this, what is their hopes in all of these? And this is some of the issues that we need to take a look at as that lockdown begins effectively from tonight, maybe we'll say tomorrow morning. I have joining me from our Abuja studio, the special advisor to the president on the social investment programs, Mr. Ismail Ahmed. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed, for coming on tonight. What an interesting time it is for people all over the world, indeed Nigerians also, especially those who are going to be forced to stay indoors from tomorrow. They won't be able to go to work. They won't be able to earn a living just in a bid to stay alive based on the orders of the federal government. But what are the hopes for these people, especially let's talk about those that are captured in some of these programs and the measures being mentioned by the president.
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me. First of all, I would say that I have been in self-isolation as well for the last 14 days. And, you were successful in pulling me out today. And I think I would start by, a quotation that was ascribed to the president of Ghana. I don't know if it is true or not, which states that they know how to revive an economy. What they don't know how to revive is human beings. They know how to bring back to life an economy, but they don't know how to bring back to life human beings. So this decision that government has taken, that the president announced yesterday in his broadcast, it's clearly something that is very painful. It's very inconvenient for a lot of people. It's very inconvenient for government as well. With the prices of oil going down and we have our economy being shut down, it's not something that government would want to do. But at this point in time, we are dealing with a virus that is stealth and treacherous and very manipulative in the way it is being transmitted. And we do not have all the facts yet. And we're just setting up testing centers as announced by the CDC. So I think the shutting down is like put a pause to what is happening right now. Let's flatten the curve. Let's make sure that this does not become a vicious cycle of one person affecting the other. Just like you mentioned in the beginning of the program, where you said the governor of Oyo State announced that he is asymptomatic and at the same time he has been tested positive. So there may be a lot of people who are asymptomatic and they are positive and they could easily transmit this disease. So we have to flatten the curve first. We have to put a pause to everything, make sure that we put everybody where he is and where he or she is, isolate, stay at home. Let's find out what the problem is before we move on. Now, going to the meat of the matter and palliatives the government is introducing. We in social investment, as being coordinated by the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs at this point, I know that the minister have been having meetings back and forth with the cluster heads of the social intervention program to make sure that this does not get disrupted and at the same time adhere to the rules and guidelines of social distancing. And I do know that the president gave an order that we should continue with the school feeding program. So I'm sure that is being worked upon. There was a meeting today where they talked about how to get that done in a way that they will leverage on other social intervention programs like the conditional cash transfer or NASCO, for example, the National Social Safety Net, which has the social register of the poor and the vulnerable people. We can also use that. We can use NEMA and SEMA in states. The minister has been talking to governors to see how she'll be able to leverage on all other existing institutions and platforms so that they will target these communities where they have people who go to public schools, children who go to public schools, and be able to deliver this ration of food for them. And I know that I myself, for example, and so many other people, individually and through my office, we've been setting up food banks. I've set up one in Kano. A lot of people are setting up many in Abuja and Lagos and most of the worst hit places to be able to see how they can actually target communities and individuals who are going to be worst hit by this lockdown and economic shutdown for the next 2 weeks. So it's a lot of things going on. Government is doing its own. The president has called upon individuals and institutions and organizations to be able to reach out and do whatever they can. This is a time of national crisis. We don't want it to turn out to be a humanitarian disaster or a medical or health disaster. But for now, there's nothing like an overreaction. We're trying what we can do. The government will continue to target people, those who are already on the scheme of social intervention programs, those are on the scheme on other programs as well, and then the general public who will be worst hit, especially those whose life subsistence is on a day-to-day basis, like the president mentioned last night.
Mr. Ahmed, let me get your view. In the minds of an average Nigerian, they want to know just how many people, we have about 200 million Nigerians. So in all of these, the trader money, the farmer money, and all of other programs that you have a data that we assume that exists. How many people are we looking at that could be captured in this window?
I can give you a simple example of saying that, for example, the National Social Register that we have under NASCO, we have captured so far, by the 29th of March, about 11.4 million individuals, totaling about 2.6, 2.7 million households, which is about 11.4 million individuals, if you're counting individuals, not households. Those are people who are already in the register, and this register has already been cleaned, and these are people who are known to be vulnerable and are in need of help. So not only government can use this register, any other individual or government or non-governmental organization or any philanthropist of whatever kind that wants to have access to data of people that he can reach out to and deliver this help. I'm sure NASCO is there, and then they talk to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. I'm sure these are things we will be willing to give. Market money, farmer money, right now we're not talking about giving them loans. The president ordered that there should be a moratorium. Moratorium means that there should be a stoppage in payment, a repayment of the loans for 3 months. So they have the respite. But I don't know if there's going to be any directive as to give more loans at this point in time, because at this point in time, we're not talking about loans. We're talking about how to get people to feed themselves during the period of this uncertain times that we're in right now. So if you take the total of, we still have a lot of people who would be receiving their stipends in Empower. There are a lot of people who would get the conditional cash transfer, which are hitting about 1 million people directly right now, and the school feeding, which we are feeding about 9.7 million children. So, which means if we are able to get this thing, to get the logistics and the platforms to do this in the next coming days, which means we're going to be feeding about 9.7 million children in their homes. That is humongous by every standard. The government or every individual might not be able to reach everybody, but we will, I'm sure the government will ensure that it reaches the most vulnerable people, which is the most important thing at this point in time.
So, I mean, in all of this, it is not all the states of the Federation that is going to be on lockdown for this period of time. It's basically from the orders of the president, Lagos, Ogun State, the governor said there that he's asked the president and he's been granted that request to extend the lockdown to up until Friday before it starts in Ogun State. So basically in FCT and in Lagos, the lockdown will resume. So you and your team and the minister have specific attention on these people. Is there any way anyone can reach out to the authorities, those of you who are in charge, to say, I need help? And how can they get that done?
Well, first of all, I don't think the social intervention program is the only, program of government that reaches out to the poor people. I'm sure there are other programs that's been done by several other institutions like the Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, CBN, so many other interventions that so many other institutions of government are doing. Those, I'm sure they will also find a way to be able to reach out to people who are, their ultimate beneficiaries as well. There is a CBT team. It's a very complicated situation right now. The CBT team, which is under NASCO as well, which are people who go to the communities and be able to come up with names of people who are vulnerable and indigent who need help. We also have something in the 2020 budget that was passed by the president, where we're supposed to target widows and single parents, which are women and people who are physically challenged, and be able to give them a one-off help to be able to find succor. And I think there's no better time to do that than now. So to
And
say, I'm
apologies.
sure that there are
Sorry,
a lot of
apologies. Let me butt in quickly because we need to take this break. But when we come back, a lot of Nigerians are asking, they want to know a few questions on how to go about it because it is now in everyone's face. The lockdown begins tomorrow morning. We'll talk more with the special advisor to the president on social investment program, Mr. Ismail Ahmed, in our Abuja studio when we return from this break, everyone. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So for those who are living in Lagos and the FCT and they're wondering that the federal government says they should start sitting at home, no going out from tomorrow morning because that lockdown order begins 11 p.m. effectively tonight. So the question on the minds of a lot of Nigerians is, how do we survive, especially those who are not on salaries, who are living by the day, who go out every day and earn a living and are asking that what do we do going forward? And that's the reason why we have in our studio tonight, Mr. Ismail Ahmed is a special advisor to the president on social investment program. Some of the palliative measures that the president has announced yesterday in his speech under the office of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, of course, where Mr. Ahmed is advising. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. Let me allow you to land on that thought, and I'll take you up on one or two questions that Nigerians want to know and what they need to do as they will begin not to work from tomorrow.
Yeah, you talked about the palliatives of people who don't earn salaries that have to go out every day. And I think the president made it very clear that the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs would have to take, would have to do the needful of taking palliatives of food supplies and other very vital and necessary equipments to this individual, especially in the satellite towns of FCT, for example. And I'm sure in Lagos there are other arrangements for that to happen as well for those who need to go out every day. But right now, like I said, it's about saving lives. It's about making sure that the country remains healthy and that we would have people to come back to after 2 or 3 weeks. And why is it 2 weeks? Because it is believed, as according to what the scientists or what we have read or heard from the people who have been observing this virus, is that it peaks after 2 weeks, whether symptoms would come out or not, and then those people who are able to show symptoms of this disease would be tested, and as well something would be done about it. Like I said, it is to flatten the curve. The government is very concerned about those who cannot or are not able to come out on a daily basis, and it's making serious arrangements to make sure that those people are reached in their homes without compromising social distancing, and making sure that these palliatives get to everybody's home.
All right,
Mr. Government is very serious about that. The president made sure that he mentioned that seriously.
Let me take one or two questions from and clarification from you. Some Nigerians are asking questions on Twitter. One person is saying that the Empower beneficiaries, especially those in Lagos, Abuja, and Oyo State, who are on lockdown from the federal government, when are they due to be paid? Essentially, another person who's asking a similar question is saying that in the last few months, especially in the second term of President Buhari, that it's been difficult to get payment to the Empower volunteers. What has happened?
Well, I'm sure the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs has discussed that severally. She's given answers to that. She came on board in August, and then she took over. I think SIP came under the ministry sometime in October, and from then on, she had to. There was a lot of transition that had to go on. That was what informed the delay in some of the payments, and. I think that has been resolved. And the question about where would the people in Lagos and the FCT, where will they congregate to be paid? Empower was never, Empower payment has always been electronically done through a transfer from CBN directly to bank accounts of beneficiaries or volunteers, so to speak. So it's never something that has to do, that's never an issue. That would continue to happen, I'm sure. I haven't heard any directive otherwise, or that it will be stopped or anything but like that would happen under the circumstances. So I'm sure that government thinks about this all the time, and the delay in payments was as a result of a transition that happened. But I'm sure the transition is complete now. There shouldn't be much of an issue.
All right. With us, Mr. Ahmed, let's get, there are a few people who are wondering what the legal aspect of what the president has said in the closure of the lockdown that he has ordered and what the Constitution says. There are a few lawyers who are concerned about the constitutionality of what the president said. Let's get the view of a lawyer who joins us on the program, Mr. Evans Ofeli. Thank you so much, Mr. Ofeli, for joining us tonight. Give us a sense of, it's an emergency. A lot of people will say, who cares what the Constitution says in the middle of a health emergency? But has the president breached any part of the Constitution of Nigeria in the order that he gave yesterday?
Well, the order that the president gave yesterday is not in alignment with the 1999 Constitution as amended. If you look at Section 305, it laid down the processes and procedure upon which the president can make such declaration, for which, where there is epidemic in terms of war, and where there is present and current danger against, the citizens of the society, it is on that ground. But in making such declaration, he must, first of all, go through a gazette process for which he has to involve the National Assembly. Upon the approval of the National Assembly, he can declare a state of emergency. That is the first point. And then when he moves from there, it will now be that by Section 8 of the Quarantine Act 1929, he will come up with a regulation, and that will give it a breadth of law, because the president's word as it stands is not law. If the president makes an order and anybody flouts it, okay, that cannot become enforceable as it stands, unless there is the process, the constitutional processes have been followed. The Constitution preempted situations like this and made adequate provisions for it. If you look at graphically at Section 305 and subsection 4, it talks about exactly what should be done, even the state governor, what the state governor should do.
Because I was going to ask you, Mr. Ofeli, apologies, quickly, Mr. Ofeli, I was going to ask you, the decision of some of the state governors also, is it in alignment with the law? Because the state governments are shutting down roads, some of them which are federal roads.
That the decisions of the state government is outrightly unconstitutional. If you look at Section 8 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, when issues of boundary is the exclusive preserve of the federal government. And then the state governor have no such powers under the law. And there's also a state where the state have enacted a law under the COVID-19 situation, empowering the governor to declare a state of emergency. That is wrong, because Section 305, subsection 4 of the Constitution says that the governor will apply to the president, okay, who will make a declaration to that effect, right. Okay, who will make a proclamation to that effect. But when you look at the way the president has gone about it, he has set the Constitution aside, and then he has taken up the issue in his own way, right, which is wrong.
Mr. Ofeli, I'm very sure that some of these issues will generate a lot of debates. Of course, I've been hearing a lot of lawyers who have been speaking about it. But thank you so much for the insights tonight, Mr. Ofeli. In the coming days, we'll see what that means. But a lot of Nigerians, their mind are set on how they will keep safe and what happens to them in the coming days in the face of these ravaging health challenge around the globe, coronavirus. And I'm very certain that we will win that war. Thank you so much, Mr. Ofeli, for your thought there. And also sincere thanks to Mr. Ismail Ahmed, the special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari on social intervention program. Thank you so much for the insight and the clarifications you've made tonight. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm sure Kimale. Bye-bye.